The patrol car's lights painted the grocery store parking lot red and blue, a stuttering pulse against the rain-slicked asphalt. Maya Thompson stood still beside her sedan, tote bag looped over her shoulder, keys pinched between her fingers. She hadn't been running. She hadn't been hiding. She'd just been writing notes into her phone after a long day. Times, names, small irregularities she told herself not to forget. Phone down. Hands where I can see them. The officer's voice was bored, practiced. Officer Kyle Mercer. His badge caught the light as he stepped closer, boots splashing through a shallow puddle. Maya felt a familiar tightening in her chest, the quiet calculation. Don't escalate. Don't explain too much. Don't apologize for existing. I'm cooperating, she said evenly, lowering the phone. Mercer's eyes flicked to her screen anyway. What are you writing? Notes. He laughed once, short and sharp. About me. Around them. Shoppers slowed, curiosity blooming behind windshields. A cart rattled past. Someone raised a phone. You people always think you're smarter than the situation, Mercer said, leaning closer. Step away from the vehicle. I'm detaining you for questions. The word detaining landed heavy, official, final. Cold rain crept down Maya's collar. Her heartbeat thudded loud enough to drown out the hum of the streetlights. She took one step back, then stopped. Officer, she said quietly, meeting his eyes, you really don't know who you just stopped. Mercer smiled, already reaching for his cuffs. The radio on his shoulder crackled to life, dispatch calling his unit number, and Maya felt something shift, a thin line pulled tight, second from snapping. The rain had started as a mist, the kind that barely registered until it soaked through your sleeves. Maya Thompson felt it on the back of her neck as she stood beside her car, phone angled low, thumb moving fast. Time, 8:17 p.m. Location, Westbrook Market parking lot. 2 squad cars in 20 minutes. 1 stop, no citation. The lights came on without warning. Red, blue, red again. She froze, not because she didn't know what to do, but because she did. Keys between fingers. Shoulders relaxed. Phone visible. Every move deliberate. A voice called out. Step away from a vehicle. Maya turned slowly. The officer was already walking toward her, hand near his belt, rain beading on his shaved head. His nameplate read Mercer. Yes, officer, she said. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could smell coffee on his breath. What are you doing out here? Loading my groceries. And before that, his eyes flicked to her phone. You were recording. Taking notes. Mercer smiled like she'd told a joke. Notes about what? Maya held his gaze. My surroundings. Uh-huh. He glanced around the lot, at the minivan idling nearby, the couple pretending not to stare. You got a reason to be suspicious. The question sat between them. Heavy. Maya felt the familiar heat rise in her chest, the urge to explain, to justify. She swallowed it. No, she said. Mercer's smile vanished. Then hand me the phone. I don't consent to searches, Maya replied evenly. His jaw tightened. Step away from the vehicle. I'm detaining you for questions. A woman pushing a cart slowed. A man across the lot lifted his phone, then lowered it when Mercer looked his way. For what reason? Maya asked. Failure to comply. I am complying. Not fast enough. Mercer reached for her arm. Maya stepped back, heart hammering now, the rain louder, colder. Please don't touch me, she said. You people always say that, he muttered, fingers closing around his sleeve. The words hit harder than the grip. Maya felt something inside her settle, a switch flipping. She stopped resisting, not because she agreed, but because she was counting. The pressure of his hand, the angle of his wrist, the camera on his chest blinking red. Hand behind your back, Mercer said. She did as told. Cold metal snapped shut around her wrists. Somewhere, a car horn honked. Someone laughed nervously. As Mercer guided her toward the cruiser, he leaned close. Next time, mind your business. Maya looked at the rain-streaked pavement, at her dropped keys glinting under the lights. She thought of the reports waiting unread, the patterns half-proven. Officer, she said quietly. This is my business. He shoved her into the back seat and slammed the door. The lock clicked, the radio crackled, and Mercer finally glanced at the name on her ID. The precinct smelled like disinfectant and old coffee, a clean mask over something stale. Maya sat on a plastic chair bolted to the floor, wrists uncuffed now, hands folded in her lap. The wall clock ticked loud enough to feel intentional. Officer Mercer leaned against the counter, chatting with a desk sergeant like nothing had happened. "Routine stop," Mercer said. "She got mouthy." Maya looked at the floor, then up. "I asked why I was detained." The sergeant, Lieutenant Harris, finally met her eyes. This will go quicker if you relax." "I am relaxed." Mercer snorted. "Sure." Harris flipped through a thin folder. "You were taking notes." "Yes." "About police activity." "About my day." Mercer laughed. "That's cute." Maya felt the word land, sticky and dismissive. She kept her voice even. "Am I being charged with something?" Harris hesitated. "Not at this time." "Then am I free to leave?" Mercer straightened. "We're still figuring that out." "Figuring what out?" Maya asked. "Intent," Mercer said. "Why you were watching us." "I wasn't watching you." "You people always say that." Harris shot Mercer a look, half warning, half tired. "Kyle." Maya lifted her chin. "Lieutenant, I'd like to know the legal basis for my detention." Harris sighed. "This is procedure." "Procedure isn't a basis," Maya replied. Mercer crossed his arms. "You got a law degree now." "I know my rights." "That's so?" Mercer stepped closer. "Because from where I'm standing, you were acting suspicious." "Suspicious how?" "Writing things down. Looking around." "Existing," Maya said quietly. The room went still. Harris cleared his throat. "We're just going to verify some information." "You already ran my ID," Maya said. "Twice." Mercer's eyes flicked away. "Standard." A junior officer hovered near the doorway, pretending to sort papers. He glanced at Maya, then looked down. "Can I make a phone call?" Maya asked. Harris checked his watch. "In a minute." "I'm requesting it now." Mercer smirked. "She's pushy." Maya looked at him. "I'm precise." Harris rubbed his temples. "Fine. One call." She dialed from memory, thumb steady. The line rang once. "Independent review," a voice answered. "This is Maya Thompson," she said. "I've been detained at Westbrook Precinct." There was a pause. "Are you safe?" "For now." Harris stiffened. Mercer frowned. "Who you calling?" Maya covered the receiver. "My office." Mercer laughed again. Louder. "You work in an office." "That explains it." She ignored him. "I'll call back when released," she said into the phone, then hung up. Harris leaned forward. "What office is that?" "Compliance," Maya said. Mercer waved a hand. "Everyone compliant something these days." Harris typed into the computer, brow furrowing. "Your name just flagged." Maya said nothing. "System glitch," Mercer said quickly. Harris's screen chimed again. "No, this is—" He stopped himself. "Hi." Maya watched his face change, confusion edging into concern. "What?" Mercer asked. "Dispatch log your stop as investigative," Harris said slowly. "But the time stamps don't match." "So?" Mercer snapped. "So," Harris continued, "the software auto-forwarded it." "Forwarded to who?" Mercer asked. "City oversight," Harris said. The room felt smaller. The junior officer swallowed. "That's automatic," Maya said gently. "Anything over 15 minutes without cause." Mercer stared at her. "You set this up?" "I helped design it." Silence stretched. Harris closed the folder. "Ms. Thompson," he said carefully, "what exactly do you do?" Maya met his eyes. "I'm the compliance lead for the Independent Justice Review Board." Mercer laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "That's bullshit." Maya didn't flinch. "Check the credentials." Harris already was. His face drained the color. "Kyle," he said, low, "stand by." "For what?" Mercer demanded. "For procedure," Harris replied, the words suddenly heavy. Maya exhaled slowly. The clock kept ticking. Maya sat back in the hard chair, letting the fluorescent lights hum over her like a microscope. Her phone was off, notes already uploaded to the secure server she maintained. She replayed every second of the encounter, filing each detail away. Officer Mercer's smirk, the grip of his fingers on her sleeve, the way he laughed at her profession like it was a joke, like she was nothing. Patterns. She had been trained to see them. Years ago, she'd watched her brother, Jamal, pulled from his car for no reason. The same smirk, the same laughter. She'd documented that, too. Every stop, every badge number, every discrepancy. Those records had become invisible lines of evidence, invisible until the right eyes read them. She had learned early that silence wasn't safety, it was complicity. Across the room, Mercer paced, hands in his pockets, muttering under his breath. "It's just a stop? She's nothing." "Nothing," he said again, louder this time. "Just a girl with a notebook." A junior officer shifted papers, watching. The room was a stage. Everyone had a role, rehearsed and familiar. But Maya had a different script in her mind. She observed, catalogued, waited. Every glance, every word, every hesitation was data. "Why do you keep notes?" Mercer asked suddenly, turning to face her. His voice carried the edge of both curiosity and threat. "Because someone has to," she said. "Someone has to remember." Mercer scoffed. "Remember what? People being annoying." Maya leaned forward, voice low and steady. "Remember what the system ignores." The tension thickened. Outside, the rain tapped a rhythm against the windows. In the hallway, footsteps approached and retreated, the muted hum of precinct life continuing as if none of this mattered. Yet it did. Every second mattered. Every misstep was logged. Mercer's hands tightened into fists. He had power, badges, authority, but he lacked foresight. He didn't know that the same system he exploited could expose him, that every misstep, every bias stop, every corner-cutting report could be traced, cross-checked, and challenged. "Why do you care?" Mercer spat. "It's my job to enforce the law." "And my job," Maya said, her eyes steady, "is to ensure it is enforced fairly." Mercer's jaw clenched. The words hit like stones, weighing him down with a truth he refused to see. The junior officer glanced nervously between them, suddenly aware that what had started as a routine stop had become something else entirely, an audit, a reckoning, a mirror held up to every abuse that had gone unnoticed. Maya's mind raced. Every action, every report, every whispered complaint over the years had brought her here. She thought of the times officers laughed at black men, at black women, at anyone who asked questions. She thought of how easily the system allowed injustice to fester, how often those who wielded power assumed their authority was unquestionable. Patterns. She saw them, and Mercer was a textbook example. The room went silent, save for the distant hum of fluorescent lights. Mercer's confidence faltered, just slightly, as if he recognized the invisible net closing around him. Maya made no move, no gesture. She simply watched, catalogued, and waited. Each moment was proof, each glance a record. And in that silence, the weight of accountability began to settle in the room, a quiet storm brewing behind calm eyes. Maya's calm, precise gaze never wavered. She knew the world could be cruel, but she also knew that patterns, once seen, could not be unseen. The system might resist, people might lie, but evidence was patient, relentless, and uncompromising. Mercer finally muttered under his breath, "We'll see who remembers." Maya simply nodded, letting the words register. She already had. The precinct was quieter now, a deceptive calm, like the moment before a storm breaks. Maya remained seated at the interview table, her posture unyielding. Officer Mercer hovered nearby, arms crossed, jaw tight. His usual smirk was gone, replaced by a twitch of unease that she recognized from experience, the subtle crack in a man who thought himself untouchable. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it, aware before she even looked. This call was coming from her office. someone finally noticing what had already been documented in meticulous detail. The lieutenant cleared his throat. "Kyle," Harris said carefully, voice low, "you need to answer that." Mercer snatched the phone, muttering, "I didn't ask for—" He cut himself off. The voice on the other end was calm, professional, but firm. "Officer Mercer," the voice said, clipped. "You're on hold regarding Westbrook Market. Stop number 42 to 19. Stand by for instructions." Mercer's eyes flicked toward Maya, the annoyance barely masked. "Stand by? For what?" "You will receive guidance from the oversight office," the voice continued. "Do not act independently." He slammed the phone onto the table. "What is this?" His face was red, and not from the fluorescent heat. Maya kept her expression neutral. "That," she said, voice measured, "is the part you weren't expecting." "You work for oversight." Mercer snapped. This is—" "Yes," she interrupted. "I'm the compliance lead for the Independent Justice Review Board. My job is to monitor patterns like yours." He laughed, a short, defensive bark. "Patterns? You think one stop makes a pattern." "It's not one stop," Maya said. "It's a sequence, a documented trend. I've been observing these interactions for months." The lieutenant typed quickly, eyes scanning a screen filled with dispatch logs, timestamps, and surveillance feeds. "Mercer, you may want to reconsider your approach." "Reconsider." Mercer's voice was sharp, panicked. "I followed procedure." "Procedure isn't always lawful," Maya said evenly. "And intent doesn't erase bias. You may find that the system sees more than you think." Mercer's mouth opened, then closed. He looked around the room as if searching for allies, but everyone avoided eye contact. The junior officer's nervous glance betrayed the tension. Even Harris was quiet, reluctant to intervene but aware that the rules had shifted. Maya leaned forward slightly. "Officer Mercer, you've just created a record of misconduct. It's documented, time-stamped, corroborated. The Oversight Office will review it. You're no longer in control." Mercer's face paled. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "Ridiculous or not," Maya replied, voice calm but firm, "the consequences are real, and your choices today matter." The lieutenant exhaled slowly. "We're going to handle this through proper channels. You'll remain here for the duration of the review." Maya nodded. She understood the stakes, the subtle fear now etched into Mercer's face. The power dynamic had shifted. He had authority in theory, but in practice, he was under scrutiny, and she had ensured every detail had been preserved. Mercer leaned back, muttering under his breath. "I didn't sign up for this." "You signed up for the badge," Maya said quietly, meeting his eyes. "And the badge carries responsibility. Remember that." The room was silent for a moment, save for the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Maya's phone buzzed again. She ignored it, focusing instead on Mercer, whose confidence had evaporated into something thin and uncertain. The Oversight Office would review everything: body cams, dispatch logs, the statements of witnesses. Every action he had taken, every word he had spoken, was now under examination. For the first time that evening, Mercer seemed unsure. Maya remained calm, precise, aware that patience and documentation were her strongest allies. The storm was coming, and he could no longer pretend it wasn't. Outside, the rain continued to fall, relentless. Inside, a quiet reckoning was unfolding. Maya's gaze was steady, unwavering, and the room seemed smaller with each tick of the clock. She had done her job. Now the system would do the rest. The office lights felt harsher now, stripped of pretense. Maya sat across from the review board, body cam footage playing on a large monitor. Every detail, the rain, the lights, Mercer's grip, his laughter, was frozen frame by frame. Her fingers tapped lightly against the table, each movement controlled. Around her, board members whispered, taking notes, referencing timestamps, verifying logs. Evidence didn't need theatrics. It had its own weight. Mercer's chair creaked as he shifted, uncomfortable beneath the weight of recorded truth. His usual arrogance faltered with every playback. "I was following procedure," he said for the 100th time, though the words were swallowed by the hum of technology and meticulous records. A junior officer, one who had hovered during the initial stop, testified quietly, confirming what Maya had documented. The defense tried to dismiss it as minor misjudgments, casual errors, but every timestamp, every log entry, every cell tower ping told the same story. Repeated bias, unnecessary detainment, abuse of authority. Maya leaned forward. "Officer Mercer," she said, voice calm but precise, "you claim procedure shields you, but this record shows patterns. Patterns that aren't isolated. You are accountable for these actions." Mercer opened his mouth to speak, but Harris placed a hand on his shoulder, shaking his head. He could no longer rewrite what was seen or heard. The screen split, side-by-side comparison of dispatch logs and body cam timestamps. The room fell silent except for the faint clicking of keyboards. A reporter's email had already begun circulating in the oversight office, mentioning the incident, and Mercer noticed. His eyes flicked toward the monitor again, panic creeping in. The oversight team's final report would not only expose this stop but highlight systemic failures, how unchecked attitudes allowed minor misconduct to escalate. Maya remained composed. She had prepared for scrutiny herself, interviews, calls from lawyers, cross-referencing of reports. She faced questions about past investigations. Each inquiry attested her credibility. Her calm, precise answers contrasted with Mercer's defensive bluster, underscoring both her professionalism and his reckless behavior. "Your actions have consequences," she said finally, voice low, almost measured, as if stating a fact rather than delivering a threat. Mercer's mouth twitched. The smile he wore at the start of the day was gone, replaced by the dawning realization that his career and reputation was crumbling under documentation he hadn't anticipated. For the first time, Mercer understood that the system he had relied on for protection could also expose him. His supervisors, once deferential, now acted cautiously, aware that the wrong word could implicate them as well. Even his union representation had begun to hedge, knowing the patterns were undeniable. Maya allowed herself a quiet exhale. The storm of exposure was only beginning. Evidence, once gathered, could not be erased. Every timestamp, every frame of video, every typed log and recorded radio call was a bullet of truth aimed at the illusion of impunity. Mercer's lips pressed together in silence. No laughter, no smack, just the sound of accountability closing in. He was no longer the one in control. The room seemed to shrink around him as Maya continued reviewing her notes, already anticipating the next questions, the next steps, the meticulous order that would leave no stone unturned. In the back of her mind, she noted the irony. All those months documenting others' behavior had led to this moment. Patterns repeated, predictable in their arrogance. And now, they were about to be exposed. The weight of justice was not loud. It was precise, methodical, and unrelenting. The board members exchanged glances, typing quickly, referencing logs, muttering about the thoroughness of documentation. Mercer shifted in his seat, shoulders tense, eyes darting, realizing that the story was no longer his to shape. Maya's calm gaze swept the room. "Everything is recorded," she said. "Everything is traceable. That's how we ensure accountability." The word settled, final and unavoidable. Outside, the rain continued its relentless fall, but inside, the echoes of oversight and exposure resonated louder than any storm. Mercer sat trapped, every choice scrutinized, every pattern documented, every act of bias laid bare before those who had the authority and the proof to act. For Maya, this was not victory, it was process. But the shift was undeniable. The system had begun to correct itself, and Mercer's illusions of control were dismantled piece by meticulous piece. The repercussions were inevitable, and she, as always, would be there to see them unfold. The city was alive with quiet tension. News of the detention and the oversight investigation had slipped into social media feeds, shared in hushed posts, accompanied by screenshots of dispatch logs and body cam clips. Some praised the system's transparency, others minimized it, insisting just another routine stop. Maya scrolled cautiously, noting patterns of public perception as acutely as she did police behavior. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, messages from colleagues, family, reporters. Each ping was a reminder. Visibility carried both protection and risk. She typed brief replies, careful not to disclose sensitive information, maintaining her composure while the storm brewed. At home, the doorbell rang late in the evening. Maya's brother, Jamal, greeted her with a mix of concern and restrained fury. "You're okay?" he asked, voice low. I saw the clips. "I'm fine," she said, "but this isn't about me." "It's always about you," he muttered. "You're always the one documenting, watching, taking notes. They don't get away with this because you're smart or because you're careful. They get caught because of what you do." Maya nodded, silent. She had long accepted that visibility carried its own dangers. Threats, scrutiny, subtle intimidation. These were the costs of enforcing accountability in a system resistant to correction. Meanwhile, Mercer was on administrative leave. The department had taken steps to shield him from the public eye, but whispers traveled quickly. Officers who had once laughed with him now avoided him. Emails leaked internally, highlighting oversight findings, and some colleagues began questioning their own actions, their silence, their complicity. At the oversight office, Maya prepared her testimony for the public review. She rehearsed answers, anticipating the subtle attempt to shift blame, to normalize bias, to reduce her actions to overreach. Dialogue-heavy meetings reminded her that justice was not only about evidence but also perception, narrative, and resilience. During a hearing, Mercer insisted he had done nothing wrong. "I follow procedure," he said, repeating the mantra like a shield. The board remained calm, referencing timestamps, radio chatter, and body cam recordings. Each discrepancy, each act of bias, was catalogued and presented in measured, unemotional terms. Outside, protesters began gathering, holding signs that were both accusatory and supportive. Some chanted, some whispered, some recorded quietly. Maya observed from a distance, notebook in hand, documenting not just the event but the spectrum of reaction, the silence, the noise, the fear, and the courage. A junior officer who had witnessed the detention approached Maya later. I didn't know how to speak up," he admitted. "But now I see what you were doing." Maya smiled faintly. It's never too late to do the right thing. The tension in Mercer remained, a constant, subtle pressure. He was a man accustomed to control, yet suddenly every glance, every word, every action was scrutinized. He spoke cautiously to colleagues, avoiding confrontation, knowing now that one wrong step could be the end. For Maya, the work was far from over. Oversight, documentation, compliance, it was a constant vigilance. The emotional weight was heavy, but necessary. She felt the exhaustion, the residual trauma of repeated bias, yet she remained unwavering. By nightfall, the city's noise had quieted, leaving an uneasy silence. Maya reviewed her notes, each detail catalogued, each timestamp confirmed. Accountability was no longer abstract. It was tangible, unfolding in real time. And while the public may have been divided, and while Mercer may have clung to his illusions, one truth remained undeniable. The system had begun to shift, guided by meticulous, patient observation and Maya's unwavering commitment to justice. Outside her window, the rain fell in steady sheets, echoing the persistence required to confront entrenched patterns. Inside, she prepared for the next day, knowing that exposure was only the beginning. Patterns could not lie, and justice, when documented and enforced, had its own rhythm. And Mercer, finally, understood he was no longer the one in control. The conference room smelled of polished wood and tension. Maya sat at the head of the table, notebook open, pen poised. Across from her, Mercer slouched in a stiff chair, eyes darting nervously from screen to screen as a review board prepared to release its findings. The atmosphere was electric, every participant aware that what happened in the next hour would ripple far beyond the precinct. The lead board member cleared his throat. After reviewing all documentation, body cam footage, dispatch logs, internal reports, and eyewitness statements, we find a pattern of bias enforcement in Officer Kyle Mercer's interactions. Mercer's jaw tightened. He shifted, hands gripping the arms of his chair. "I don't agree with." "Please hold all comments," the board member interrupted. His voice carried authority tempered with neutrality. Specific stops, including the Westbrook Market incident on March 5th, were determined to be improper, unjustified, and in violation of department policy. Maya remained calm, her pen moving steadily as notes were taken. She recorded the language, precise and unambiguous. Violation of policy, pattern of bias, documentation sufficient for administrative action. Every word cemented accountability. Officer Mercer will face termination and decertification, the board member continued. Supervisory personnel involved in oversight failure will undergo disciplinary review. The department is required to implement corrective measures to prevent recurrence. Mercer's face flushed. Termination? Decertification? For one stop? One incident. One stop isn't isolated, Maya said quietly, voice steady. It's part of a documented pattern. This decision reflects evidence collected over months, corroborated by logs and oversight review. A murmur ran through the room. Some colleagues glanced at Mercer with surprise. Others avoided eye contact. Even his union representative remained silent, aware that the evidence was overwhelming. Maya felt the familiar mix of vindication and exhaustion. The process had worked, but at a cost. Sleepless nights, constant vigilance, emotional weight carried alone. She glanced at Mercer, whose smugness had long since evaporated, replaced with a creeping realization that system could no longer shield repeated misconduct. Ms. Thompson, the board member said, nodding toward her, your role in documenting and verifying the facts was instrumental in this review. Your diligence ensured accountability. She offered a measured smile. Thank you. The system works only if someone ensures it does. Mercer's voice was low, bitter. You're going to ruin people's careers over notes and timestamps. Not over notes, Maya said calmly. Over actions. Over patterns. Over choices that repeatedly harm the public and undermine trust. He sat back, defeated, understanding that words alone could no longer protect him. Every report, every camera angle, every witness testimony had converged to reveal the truth. The board concluded with a directive, procedural reforms, retraining, and enhanced oversight mechanisms to ensure equitable enforcement. The room remained silent as the weight of accountability settled. Mercer's downfall was complete, documented, and undeniable. Maya packed her notes carefully, aware that the work was ongoing. Systems require constant vigilance, and patterns would always need observers. But for this chapter, justice had its day. The abuser faced tangible consequences, and the integrity of the system, however imperfect, had been restored. Outside, sunlight broke through the clouds, brief and cautious, like hope after storm. Maya exhaled slowly, knowing that the emotional cost remained, but so did resilience, purpose, and the quiet power of documentation. Patterns, once seen, could no longer be ignored, and she would ensure they never were. Months had passed since the review board verdict. The precinct was quieter now, but not calmer. Reforms were underway, new training modules, revised reporting systems, and oversight measures meant to prevent bias from going unchecked. Maya walked through the city streets, notebook in hand, observing the rhythm she had long catalogued: patrol patterns, community interactions, procedural adherence. Nothing had returned to normal. Nothing could. She stopped outside Westbrook Market, the same parking lot where Mercer had first detained her. The familiar hum of fluorescent lights in the storefront, the chatter of late shoppers, and the rain beginning to fall in gentle sheets felt different now. She had been back here before, but never with this sense of quiet authority. She took a deep breath, letting the memory of that night settle, not as trauma, but as a record, a lesson, a reminder why vigilance mattered. A store clerk approached, holding a grocery bag. Everything okay? Maya smiled faintly. Yes, just passing through. She glanced down at her notebook. Even now, she continued documenting, not out of fear, but purpose. Patterns mattered. Accountability mattered. And she, as ever, would be the one ensuring they were noticed. Her phone buzzed. A new report flagged a series of unusual stops across the city. She opened the file, thumb steady, eyes scanning quickly. Her heartbeat didn't quicken. She had faced worse, observed more, endured more, and yet the work remained relentless. Patterns were patient. Injustice was persistent. Somewhere in the city, Mercer's career was over. He had been terminated, decertified, and his reputation had crumbled. His attempts to rationalize or rewrite events were futile. Documentation did not lie. And though he had faced consequences, Maya knew that the emotional scars of bias left on communities persisted far beyond a single officer's downfall. Her thoughts flickered to the junior officers, the witnesses, the oversight staff, and the public who had watched from a distance. Accountability had a cost. Visibility had a cost. And yet, without it, nothing changed. The rain intensified, tapping a steady rhythm against the car roofs. Maya made her way to her sedan, notebook tucked safely under her arm. She paused, looking back at the lot one last time. A storm had passed here months ago, but the city itself remained in flux, unpredictable, imperfect, alive. She climbed into her car and started the engine. The dashboard light glowed softly. Patterns awaited her attention, systems demanded her vigilance, and justice, patient, unyielding, and precise, would continue to unfold through the careful work of those who noticed. Maya drove away, the rain blurring the lights into streaks of color. She did not feel triumphant, only determined. The city had shifted, slightly but meaningfully, and she, as always, would be ready to document, to observe, and to ensure that accountability, however delayed, was never denied. The world was messy, biased, and resistant, but for now, one pattern had been corrected, one voice had been heard, and in that there was quiet, relentless justice.